your concept and your idea about it's called concealed carry. And it only works where you have people very adept at using firearms, of which you have many. And it would be teachers and coaches. If the coach had a firearm in his locker when he ran at this guy, that coach was very brave. Saved a lot of lives, I suspect. But if he had a firearm, he wouldn't have had to run. He would have shot, and that would have been the end of it. And this would only be, obviously, for people that are very adept at handling a gun. And it would be, it's called concealed carry, where a teacher would have a concealed gun on them. They'd go for special training, and they would be there, and you would no longer have a gun-free zone. Gun-free zone to a maniac, because they're all cowards. A gun-free zone is let's go in and let's attack, because bullets aren't coming back at us. And if you do this, and a lot of people are talking about it, and it's certainly a point that we'll discuss, but concealed carry for teachers and for people of talent, of that type of talent. So let's say you had 20% of your teaching force, because that's pretty much the number. And you said it, an attack has lasted, on average, about 3 minutes. It takes 5 to 8 minutes for responders, for the police to come in. So the attack is over. If you had a teacher who was adept at firearms, they could very well end the attack very quickly. And the good thing about a suggestion like that, and we're going to be looking at it very strongly, and I think a lot of people are going to be opposed to it. I think a lot of people are going to like it. But the good thing is that you'll have a lot of people with that. You know, you can't have 100 security guards in Stoneman Douglas. That's a big school. It's a massive school with a lot of acreage to cover, a lot of floor area. And so that would be certainly a situation that is being discussed a lot by a lot of people. You'd have a lot of people that'd be armed, that'd be ready. They're professionals. They may be Marines that left the Marines, left the Army, left the Air Force, and they're very adept at doing that. You'd have a lot of them, and they'd be spread evenly throughout the school. So the other thing, I really believe that if these cowards knew that the school was, you know, well guarded from the standpoint of having pretty much professionals with great training, I think they wouldn't go into the school to start off with. I think it could very well solve your problem. So we'll be doing the background checks. We'll be doing a lot of different things, but we'll certainly be looking at ideas like that. You know, a lot of people don't understand that airline pilots now, a lot of them carry guns. And I have to say that things have changed a lot. People aren't attacking the way they would routinely attack. And maybe you have the same situation in schools. So does anybody like that idea here? Does anybody like it? Right? Yes? For Meadow, your beautiful Meadow. We talked about that. And do people feel strongly against it? Anybody? Anybody? Strongly against it? All right. I mean, look, we can understand both sides of it. And certainly it's controversial. But we'll study that along with many other ideas. Anybody else something to say? Yes, go ahead.
I've been in thousands of schools across America, and I've noticed in Israel they have one hard entry point, and it's very well guarded. I'm not asking for us to turn I'm not saying that we should turn our schools into prisons, but I've been in so many schools where I'm speaking in an auditorium, and I'll go outside to call my wife or to just get a breath of fresh air. And it is so easy for me to get back into that school. I'm an unknown adult to many of those students. I can tap on a window and they'll open the door for me. Or I can catch someone coming out the side door and easily get in. So one of the things that I have thought a lot about in seeing this around the country is we have really soft entry points into schools.
That's true. And we can do something about that. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Brandon Thompson. First, my heart goes out to everyone who's experiencing this tragedy right now. I'm currently Dean of Students at Friendship Tech Prep, which is in the heart of Southeast DC, which is in Ward 8, which is one of the most impoverished wards in DC. However, at our school, just a solution, we actually have checkpoints. when a student walks in the door, we actually have metal detectors. And I oftentimes see that in urban education. And we actually have an X-ray machine that students put their bags through. And right after this incident happened, a parent who didn't so much agree with it at first sent me an email saying, thank you, because now I see exactly what's happening. And so we oftentimes use that TSA model. When the student comes in, we have somebody at the door to greet them, to do a check-in just to see how they feel. And we have certain point people where I know this person's not feeling so well, so they won't get past point one. They go through the metal detector, their bag go through the machine. And so at the end of the day, just talking to my students riding over today, they all say, well, I feel safe. And you come outside and you say, talk about mental hospitals. Our school is right across the street from a shut down mental hospital. We have, if you were to come over to the streets, you'd be like, oh my God, but once you get inside the building, we have that family feel. We have those check-in points. We have it where every visitor that comes through our building has to go through these checkpoints to ensure that our students get home safe, to ensure that our staff members get home safe. And these are just minor solutions. Like, I will say, I'm against having a teacher with a gun in a building. Teachers are emotional. People are emotional. So I think that is a huge factor. However, but having students, and you may have to go to staff members going through these checkpoints to ensure that, one, their mental is on point, and two, that we're talking about they don't have any physical metal on them, or even in our building, our students don't even carry cell phones because we consider that's a threat. It's taken away from them learning. So they actually turn in their cell phones. And so those things of ensuring our kids are there at the moment, to live the moment, to enjoy school, they get that joy factor, they get that family feeling. They're able now to connect with one another and able to communicate and not have to worry about looking over their shoulder when they walk, out in the end of the building, because they know every person that comes through the building has been through a metal check. Their bags have been checked. And so that's just a solution. Once again, my heart goes out to everyone who's been through this tragedy.
Thank you. Very well said. Very well said.
Mr. President, thank you for being open to hearing all forms of solutions. I truly appreciate that. One point on the mental health issue, and I think it's important to note that someone with a mental illness is highly unlikely to ever commit an act of violence. It's a very, very small percentage. What we're really dealing here is more with a lack of mental wellness. This is around anger and fear. And that's not something that you can diagnose and put in mental health hospitals. This is more about funding for mental health services to help these individuals that are at risk, especially when we think about suicide, teen suicide. Suicide is the #2 killer of our children, as I understand right now, and a lot of these suicides are performed with firearms, which makes them, unsavable. So the idea of mental health and being able to identify who's at risk, who is considering these issues, who's going into crisis, that is incredibly important. I appreciate the point on arming teachers. It's not personally something that I support. Rather than arm them with a firearm, I would rather arm them with the knowledge of how to prevent these acts from happening in the first place. How do you identify the kids in your class that are most at risk? And then, most importantly, within a school, how do we have a safety assessment program so that schools know how to deal with all these threats, have established protocols to deal with them, and get underneath the surface of what's going on in that child's life, find out why they're on this pathway behavior, and intervene. This is about prevention. There are some fabulous solutions being talked about today which still go to imminent danger. Let's talk about prevention. There is so much that we can do to help people before it reaches that point. And I urge you, please, stay focused on that as well. It is the gun, it's the person behind the gun, and it's about helping people before they ever reach that point.
Yes, go ahead.
So,
Thank you.
thank you. I fully respect all of our amendments, including the second. But in Maryland, they have proven that the Second Amendment does not protect these types of weapons. They have banned over 45 different kinds of assault weapons, including the AR. They have banned they have limited magazine sizes. They have proven that it's not like we have to lose our Second Amendment. These the Second Amendment, I believe, was for defense. And I fully respect that, like I said. But these are not weapons of defense. These are weapons of war. And I still can't fathom that I myself am able to purchase one. Anyone?
I would like to talk, Mr. President. I couldn't agree. I'm not here to debate, but I lost my sister. And like Mr. President said, if you could find 20% of maybe retired law enforcement officers or teachers who could go through discrete training to carry a firearm on this waist, it could have been a very different situation. Like he said, law enforcement takes them 7 minutes, 8 minutes to get there. If a teacher or a security guard has a concealed license and a firearm on their waist, they're able to easily stop the situation. Or the bad guy, I'll put it that way, would not even go near the school knowing that someone can fight back against them. Also, I believe that is insanity that they would even open the gates up 20 minutes before school ends. They're supposed to protect us and the children. So in the future, we need more security. We need more firearms on campus. We need better background checks. And we need to study more on mental health. And I want to thank everyone for their condolences, and that's my only argument. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, good.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Madam Secretary, for having us here. My deepest condolences to those who have lost family and friends. My name is Curtis Lawrence. I'm the principal at Friendship Collegiate Academy. And like Mr. Brandon had said, we have security, and we also have MPD on staff that we hired to make sure that things aren't coming into our school. And also this immediately in the mornings and during dismissal, immediately around the school to protect our kids as they leave. But last month we did suffer a loss. One of our 9th graders was gunned down walking distance from the school. And so when we talk about safe passage, I think in looking at what's happening with gun violence with our scholars and with our students, I'm saying taking a double approach, right? You have to protect kids that are in schools. All right, so as a president, you have different laws in different states. And so definitely where they don't have the necessary security as we may have as getting in, then we have to think of what are those solutions for the kids in Florida that are going to those schools with that to make sure that they're safe in school. And then places like here in DC, what are those solutions to make sure kids are able to get home and to school safely? So I think it's a two-pronged approach, and I know you're in a specific position to, as you meet with the governors and they have their different laws and coming from these different perspectives, to make them own that two-pronged approach to protect them in school and protect them as well out of school going back and forth.